Hey guys, it's Sean Klinger with Vital MX and welcome to the 450 Shootout for 2020. Looking at all these bikes, there's some that are unchanged and some that are drastically changed. And starting with the ones that are pretty much the same as the 2019 models, the Suzuki just has updated graphics, and same with the Kawasaki. No performance upgrade, just different color plastics, different graphics. Next up, the Honda is pretty much similar to the 19 bike. They added kind of a Honda's version of kind of a traction control system on there. The next ones that got a little bit more updated were the KTM and Husky. There's different mapping changes on these bikes and different internal suspension changes. Both went a little bit different direction. Husqvarna wanted to kind of make things a little more appealing to the weekend warrior, where KTM kind of went more performance-based. Lastly, the most changed bike for 2020 is the YZ450F. All new engine package, basically, a new frame, suspension was updated and changed, new exhaust, so lots of changes to that bike, and we've already ridden all of these, so we're excited to ride them head-to-head, back-to-back, same track, same day. Really highlights the subtle differences between these bikes. We're excited to do it. Got a lot of testers out here with us with Vital today, and let's go meet the testers.
My name is Ricky Yorks. I'm a longtime test rider and I race 30 Plus Pro.
Chris Hay, test rider, and I race in the Vet Pro class.
I'm Ryan Orr, longtime test rider, ex-pro motocrosser, supercross racer, 40 Plus Pro.
Steve Boniface, test rider for Vital MX. Used to race pro, retired 10 years ago. And
BJ Burns, 30 Pro, motorcycle coach, also motorcycle test rider.
Bradley Lionette. I'm from South Africa. I race pro motocross and supercross.
So let's get into the actual ranking and the final standings of all the bikes. Starting with the last place, kind of no surprise here, it's the Suzuki RM-Z450 with 38 points. So most people said that the Suzuki, it was kind of hard for them to place it in sixth place because there were, a lot of attributes that a lot of the testers liked. Consistently across the board, a lot of people like the way it handles. A few people said that sometimes the front end was a little unpredictable, but mostly, it corners on rails. There was a couple things that held it back, and it's obviously unchanged from last year, which is a kind of a slower, old school kind of feel motor, which isn't necessarily slow, it's just, it revs slowly. It's very much a bottom to mid power. Once you get up in the higher RPMs, it's just making noise, it's not really moving forward. The other thing that kind of holds the Suzuki back is the chassis. Overall, it has a rigid feel. It's a pro and a con, more a con than a pro. Some people do like the precise handling. I mean, that's what leads to some of the precise characteristics of the Suzuki.
Hey, I'm Ryan Orr. I just got off the Suzuki 450. The chassis, maybe a tiny bit on the rigid side, but it's a very predictable bike. The cornering is always good on that bike, and it's still good. And you can rail flat track turns, berms, ruts, whatever you want. It holds tight, and it's so predictable. The engine's a little too soft. It revs out quick, but it doesn't have that torque to come off the bottom, which I wish it had.
Hey guys, my name is Bradley Lionette. The Suzuki, for me, was a great bike, even though it's a little bit outdated. I really like the smoothness of it. I really like the way it cornered. Really sits well in turns. You can really get forward. It's really smooth. Another thing I did not like about the bike was the frame. I felt as if the frame was a bit stiff, especially when you are coming into a turn and you hit a big bump. You can really feel how stiff the frame is.
Suspension-wise, some riders thought that the fork was a little soft, and most riders like the overall balance of the bike, but something holding it back is just harsh and kind of rigid, and that's what kept it in sixth place. Moving on to fifth place is the Husqvarna FC 450 with 31 points. This bike, I think the major thing that consistently was talked about by all the testers was the suspension being very soft. That was the direction that they wanted to go with this 2020 bike. They didn't make changes, and that's at the intro, that's how they explained it, was they wanted to take the FC450 in a different direction than the KTM, make the suspension more user-friendly for the average rider, for the kind of everyman.
Hi, I'm Chris Hay, here at the 2020 Vital MX 450 Shootout. Today I rode the Husqvarna FC 450. It was actually a really nice bike to ride. One thing I really liked about the bike was the adjustability with the maps and the traction control. I was able to try every different combination, and I felt like it was actually something that impressed me a lot was the fact that you could change maps for the different conditions of the track. The suspension felt really good, felt very balanced and very compliant with like small bumps, and it felt very easy to ride.
What's going on, guys? My name's Ricky Yorks. I'm 31 years old and I'm a vet pro rider. Some of the things about the Husqvarna that I liked, well, it was still extremely fast, but it built power in a very smooth, easy to ride way. As you got more fatigued or tired, the bike was still easy to ride. It didn't, pull out of the turns and pull your arms out, yet still making great power and putting the power down to the ground. It really is a good balance.
Along with that comes the motor characteristic, which is pretty mellow. Both maps, 1 and 2. 2 is the more aggressive map, but it still has a soft hit on the bottom that builds to a pretty strong mid-range and then goes into the top end, which is where the bike likes to be ridden. In 4th place is the Honda CRF450R with 26 points. The main thing with the Honda is I think pretty much everyone really likes the motor. It's extremely powerful, and it can be ridden aggressively, but that's how it wants to be ridden.
BJ Burns out here doing the Vital MX Shootout of the 2020 450s. Today we're going to talk about the Honda 450. A couple things that I liked about that bike is the power. The engine is phenomenal on that bike. It's got that free rev feel, not a lot of engine braking, which is nice to have. If you like to take corners real tight, get in and out, that bike is awesome. It really reacts well to that. So the tighter the corner, the better it responds. A couple of the corners that kind of opened up a little bit, I felt like a couple of the other bikes had a better planted feel. But when you got into the tight 180s, that bike would really respond well. So you can lay it over and it just goes. It's a really nice feel, a lot of confidence in that front wheel. It's nice to have.
The first lap on the track, as you just noticed, that the power is extremely exciting. It has great bottom and mid-range and great top end as well. It's really a strong engine. The bike is very live and nimble, but it also translates into a little bit of twitchiness or a little bit busy on some of the faster tracks where the track gets rough. You start to feel that the bike maybe takes a little bit effort than some of the other bikes.
In 3rd place, the Kawasaki KX450 got 22 points, which actually ties with the KTM in 2nd place with 22 points. But overall judgment of all of our testers decided that the Kawasaki should be in 3rd and the KTM should be in 2nd. No changes from last year, so this year what the main comments about the Kawasaki is basically that it doesn't do anything bad. That no one has any real negative comments about the Kawasaki, other than the fork maybe's a little bit on the soft side. But across the board, I hear a lot of good power, good handling, good suspension, but not great. So it's not that the Kawasaki is down to 3rd place because it's doing something wrong. It's just the bikes above it are doing some things better.
When you get on a bike, there's only 3 points of contact, which is your feet, your hands, and obviously your fingers on the levers. And for me, the front brake levers are way too skinny, and as well as the grips are way too hard. The Kawi is a great turning bike. It turns super smooth, and it really sticks in ruts super well. You could get up front of the bike, the way the bike is set up, you could really sit up front on it. It turns, and you could turn as sharp as you want. You turn and point and shoot wherever you want.
On the negative side to the KX450 was probably the front fork. For me, I felt like it was a little bit too soft. Even with a couple of clicks on, it still felt a little bit soft, but it was also, you could say it's a positive because also it came into the turns and it was actually a good thing.
The power character is is still snappy and aggressive, but it's smooth enough to control, and it can be ridden by a wide variety of riders. If some people like to rev, some people like to lug, you can do it both with the Kawasaki. Like I mentioned, in second place, the KTM 450 SXF got 22 points, but what put it over the edge was that at least one rider did rank it first overall. The grips, the bar bend, the seat, the ergos, everything fit. It's a very light bike, it's a very thin bike, so riders that enjoyed, sitting really far in the tank and then being able to move back, that's definitely a benefit of the KTM. The power, we would all agree, is stronger than the Husqvarna. It still has a similar characteristic where the bottom end is mellow and there is a strong mid to top end. You ride it aggressively, you get the benefits. At the intro, a concerted effort to make the suspension still quote unquote ready to race. It's more of a race oriented setting.
Hi guys, I'm Steve Boniface and we're here today at Pala. I got to ride the new KTM 450. One of the things that really stand out for me is the race ready character of the bike. A big improvement on the engine, making it easier to ride. Also very easy to turn, very nimble, light feeling. So that was the best things for me.
It's a great all-around bike. The motor package is up there with all the other bikes. It's got good bottom, mid, top, has some over rev, which I like. Cornering, it corners pretty well. It's real maneuverable. It's confidence inspiring, like going off jumps and wanting to flick it. I love that part about the bike. With suspension wise, it's a little busy. It's mainly in the braking bumps. Acceleration bumps a little, but mainly braking bumps. But it's got a good balance to it, so it's nothing that's too unpredictable where it would go bad. So I think with a little bit of tuning and some suspension work, that bike's going to be a great overall bike.
And finally, first place with only 8 points, pretty definitive first place, was the Yamaha YZ450F. This bike is vastly different on paper than the 2019 model. They changed the engine, they changed the suspension, they changed the frame, and I think it took it from an A to an A+. Across the board, it did everything, not just good, but great. The motor has torque, has bottom end hit, it has mid-range pull, and it has top end over rev. Both the lightest rider at 150 pounds and the heaviest rider at 240 pounds both picked the Yamaha first. They both were able to be very comfortable with the suspension.
It's phenomenal. It makes the bike feel lighter. The engine braking I feel is less this year, which is a big improvement. Another thing that I like about that bike is the suspension. Suspension is super predictable. It does exactly what you want it to do or what you expect it to do, which is nice, especially me being on the bigger side. It's confidence inspiring to ride that bike, which is a plus,
I really like the suspension. For me, the Yamaha really the best suspension out of the 450s, and I think it's one of the big plus on the bike. Engine, big improvement over the last few years. It's way easier to ride than it was, and it makes the bike feel way lighter than previously. So the air filter, gas tank, shroud being a little bit wider than some of the other bikes. It doesn't really bother me riding, but you can feel it's a little wider, and it makes the bike feel a little heavier than it really is when you actually ride the bike on the track.
So, for the full test breakdown of all rider opinions, dyno charts, weight charts, and everything else that we have to say about the 450 2020 Vital MX Shootout, please go to our website. And if you're on YouTube, you can click subscribe if you like this video, and we really appreciate you watching.